in terms of matchup, they probably match up a little better than people give Clemson credit for. They got some size. No matter what, they're both bruisers, and Ballo got his hands full, and you can clearly saw Baylor was ready to go against the ropes there. So.
I didn't really believe in them until they beat Baylor. Now it's like, all right, I gotta respect them a little bit. They got their wins.
Absolutely. So, the one who surprised me that killed Baylor was Chase Hunter, though. I felt like 2 years ago he was really, really, really good, and then he kind of had a mediocre year last year. When Clemson was a little down, and this year, like that day versus Baylor, he had a hell of a game. So, if their guards play good, they'll be all right. I don't think Clemson wants to see, how your boys directly after that. So, I don't think your Clemson wanted to see an ACC team. That doesn't make much sense.
You're talking about North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not really my boys, but I feel you because I picked them in my bracket. But, well, we might as well get to it, Tevin. On the episode you were on last week, we talked about a team coached by a legendary coach. Had a first round where everyone thought it was an easy one. We thought this team was going to go far. Even some of us, I think both of us, had this team going to the finals. Tevin, I have to ask you, Kentucky, what happened?
They are what you call kids playing a man's game. I think way like 2-3 weeks prior, I think me and you were shooting stuff on
you can
FaceTime.
Swear, it's all right. It ain't bad.
You know what I mean? Yeah, try not to for the public. But,
I appreciate it.
We were chilling, talking on FaceTime, and you asked me, you were like, "Yo, are any of these young teams gonna pull it off?" And I said, "There's absolutely no way. If you look at what's left in the bracket, none of these teams are kids. These are all grown men playing grown man basketball this late in the year. So it just was kids being kids, They don't get no inside production. I think that's pretty blatant. They don't score down low. They don't get nothing from their inside guys. They're good shot blockers. They're athletic. But if you can't score down low versus Oakland, you're not going to score down low versus the Houstons of the world, the North Carolinas, the UConns of the world that you'll have to see later anyway. So, again, another year Calipari let me down.
Now, Kentucky, they've been a team every year. They're a team most people pick to win their bracket. Maybe not most, but a large portion of people. It's because of the coach, the pedigree. Even when people in our age group, we were in high school, they won it with a big freshman group. And that was where, some people, I've heard you joke before, Anthony Davis may have made John Calipari at Kentucky, at least his tenure there. After all this time, we're looking at Kentucky now. And we're saying, they're kids. We knew that going in, though. So something had to have changed. Is it the coaching at this point? What is it at Kentucky that we can point to why they haven't been able to match what we saw 10 years ago, 11 years ago?
Very simple. You go young, and when you go young, you got some of the kids have bad habits. I always say coming into this late in the year if they haven't gotten better and certain things like that. But I hate to do this to our guy because he's a local legend, John Calipari, especially us around here for UMass. But his X's and O's are just not it. Me and you, we've seen coaches through the years, elite level coaches, get fired for not maintaining success. There's only a handful I can even point to that have got jobs even though they don't win nothing. With him, I get it. He brings the swagginess. He brings it all. He brings the money in. He brings his own, his style. I get that. I totally do. But his X's and O's in the game are what's killing the poor kids. Like, you tell me you can't cook up nothing to score down there against Oakland? Nothing. Not one. They shot great and they still lost the game. Like, you know what I mean?
And this is with a player that you're telling me coming off the bench who is arguably to some, maybe not even arguably to you, the best player in the country right now.
Oh, yeah, he was rolling in. And then as quickly as he was rolling in was as quickly as he just wasn't.
How do you feel about his individual game against Oakland?
I didn't think he played up to par. I think they struggled. A lot of the freshmen struggled in that game. I always say they were blessed this year to have, I call him Mr. Consistency. Antonio Reeves, is that his name?
Reeves, yep. Reeves,
jump shooter from Illinois State. I believe he transferred in from. He was Mr. Consistent, and what was he in that game? Mr. Consistent. He kept them in the game. He hit big shots late in the game. I think you even text me Reeves, late in the game, and then out of nowhere we were like, "Yo, Oakland just beat these guys." So I just don't believe his X's and O's though right now. I think he's been getting out coached. For me, people say maybe I'm crazy, but if you watch the Oakland coach, I forgot his name sadly, but if you saw how into the game he was for his team, it was like electric. You can feel the coach, like he was screaming at them even when they were winning at the end of the game with seconds left. He was still freaking out in terms of like box out, the little things are gonna matter. And he cooked up a good game plan. Even after Kentucky knew that kid was gonna shoot the ball, they still couldn't stop him.
I was going to ask you, Tevin, if I told you there's a player with a stat line, 32 points, shot 10 for 20, and every single 10 of those 20 were from three-point range. Jack Golke, guard for Oakland. What's up with that? Where'd this kid come from, Tev? Where'd he come from? What's up with him?
Suppose he's a D2 like legend. Usually that's how it is. I've been noticing a couple players through the years have been transferring in from small schools. There's another kid we'll touch on later from Grand Canyon. Big program.
We sure are.
Went down to JUCO ball level though. Came back from JUCO ball up. That's what my guy for the Miami Heat, Duncan Robinson. Started off at Williams, Division III national champion. You know what I mean? His coach at Williams, who was a hell of a coach, told him, "What? Hey, buddy, you got to go play D1. Like, there's no room for you here in terms of your success." And that's probably what this kid went through. I imagine. Yeah, he doesn't. I found out today. I guess I didn't even notice because the way he was playing so well, I thought he started, but he came off the bench from what. Shout out to our other boy B. Our B said he came off the bench and dropped that 32 though.
Right.
So,
he didn't start that game.
No, he didn't start that
Crazy.
game.
36 minutes though. They knew once he was shooting the way he did, they said, "All right, stay in there, kid."
Yeah. So I didn't look up much, but the things I did find out about him, he hit 10 3-pointers more than once this year. I believe it was 3 or 4 times. That's unbelievable.
Well, he's only had 8 attempts all year that weren't from the 3-point line. I think there was 8 field goals where there was maybe layups. I don't know, but insane stuff. And even Oakland, they even look good in their next round game. We'll get into this side, staying on that side of the bracket against NC State. You and I were at Encore in Boston. Shout out to that casino, fantastic time. But watching this game was one of the classics. I mean, we'll get Creighton, Oregon happened as well, and this NC State Oakland game was ridiculous. So NC State coming off that momentum, going against a powerful Marquette team that battled it out with Colorado. I don't want to say snuck it out or survived. They deserve the win. But Marquette, NC State, staying on that side. What do you think about that matchup? What are you most interested by, and who comes out of it, you think?
You got to go with Shaka Smart probably in this situation, 9 times out of 10. DJ Burns has been another guy, like our boy from Oakland, DJ Burns, though, has been my guy in terms of like where the lights are on him right now, and he's fun to watch. He's an old school Zach Randolph type of player.
Shout
lefty.
out Zebo.
Yeah, shout out to Zebo. It had to be somewhere smiling watching that man play because that boy was going left and it was under the rim the whole time. I haven't seen that in about, I don't know, a good 5 or 6 years. A player play like under the rim like that, use both hands. He's got a good spin move to go left and right. He's an interesting player though. They have a good team. They play in the ACC. They play tough competition all year. They're not going to back down on Marquette. They want. If I'm not mistaken, they are ACC tournament champions. They did have to bang out, I believe, 4 games in a row to win. So they were rolling into the NCAA tournament hot. So now they're on a 6-game win streak. Anything's possible now this late in the year. You got 1 or 2, like you said, you called it, that Marquette deserved to win. I honestly think it's a lot better, closer game that people are going to give NC State credit for.
Yep. And that is the early game on Friday in the South region. Game after that, a game I definitely want to talk about, a team we got to get into. It's going to be the number 4 seed Duke Blue Devils, who a lot of smart basketball minds did not see going this far this year. They're going up against their toughest test yet, however, with the number 1 Houston team. Duke, dominant wins with Vermont, like you said, pulled away second half, had a great second half. JMU, it wasn't close against James Madison. They beat the brakes off them. Again, I'll ask you kind of the reverse of what I asked you with Kentucky. What did Duke show that you didn't expect to see out of them that gets them in the Sweet 16 and maybe further?
Oh well, you said it. You said the right word, dominance. Right, all year they haven't showed a time where I watched them and they look to dominate the game. You have Kyle Filipkowski. He was projected last year to be a top 10 pick. Mark Mitchell, another first round pick. They come back to school. You get Jerry Mosher come back for his 5th year. You end up getting top tier freshman and Jared McCain, who was a top 20 player, I believe, coming in at the end of the year. Maybe they clicked, maybe it clicked because they didn't win the ACC tournament. I think they won one game and then they got bounced out. So it's not like they came in with that hot streak. North Carolina had just deflated them at the end of the year in Duke. So it was a very weird moment for them, and it seems like maybe they clicked. Again, maybe the matchups are favorable, but again, JMU won their game, so I'm not going to discredit them. They beat a good Wisconsin team in AJ Storrs. Duke came out and dominated that second round matchup from beginning to end, and they never looked back. So it was a good dominating performance. But you said they do have the toughest matchup in terms of who they got next, for sure.
I think one big thing with Duke I just want to touch on is we talked about it with the James Madison game. Kyle Filipkowski, obviously big presence everywhere on the court. It's 3-point line at one point, like I said. He caught a lot of attention, forced a wide open shot from one of his guards, an easy pass off. Do you think Kyle Filipkowski, even though other players have been shining maybe over him, especially against James Madison, has he been doing his job? Is he someone that you think matches up well with Houston? And I was going to get into it anyway, asking you how well Duke matches up with Houston. But we'll start with the big man, with Filipkowski. Does he match up well with Houston? Do you see him having a good game? Or is it going to be more of a decoy game like we saw with James Madison?
I think that's the one matchup they can win, is him at the 5. I believe Houston is playing with their backup center. The starting center for them has, I believe, a broken foot. That's the one matchup they can win, and because that kid that they do have right now at the moment, from what I've seen the last 2-3 months, he doesn't score. He's just there to rebound, block shots, be an energy guy. So Filipkowski has to, I feel like, dominate that matchup. Get your 25, get maybe 30 here, set the tone early with them, because Houston's guards are going to come to play in this one. People think Duke's going to get ran over. I do not believe Duke gets run over. I believe Houston beats them just because of eventually the physicalness will just wear Duke down, but Duke will be in that game the entire time.
You sort of beat me to it. I was going to ask you, did Duke win you over enough to beat Houston? But it sounds like you think Houston will move on and retain the number 1 seed. In the range, are we going to put it in the absolutely not range with Long Beach State, or are we going to hold off from that one?
No, this is doable. Duke like I said, if Filipkowski comes to play his game and say I'm the best big guy on this floor in this game today, Duke has a big shot of beating them for sure. But again, I just think the Houston guards, though, when you got dudes that they get on that side, they live on the defensive side. The thing is, people just believe their defense, and they scored 100 points the other day versus a very good Texas A&M team that's coached by Buzz Williams.
What a game, by the way! What a game! Insane game.
It's nuts. That game was crazy. Even you were telling me, you were like, yo, what's going on in this? Buzzer beaters were getting hit. Dudes were going to the game with the OT. Oh, man, it was NCAA tournament at its finest for us.
Nuts game, and it actually came right after the other game I thought was the most insane game we'll talk about very quickly. Grand Canyon, Alabama. That was a game where I don't think a lot of people gave Grand Canyon a chance besides, maybe anyone who listened to us on here giving Grand Canyon respect. That was a game where I don't know how much you caught of it, but it looked like in the beginning there were, I think, 2 technicals called on Alabama, from one on Oates, one on Pringle when he got put on the bench, threw a clipboard on the court. Anyway, they go through all that, but the problem with Grand Canyon is that they don't hit their free throws in that game. They were close to 50% on free throws. They had close to 20 attempts. It was terrible. That was the difference in the game at the end of the day. And then Alabama's their big guy showed up in the second half. By the way, shout out to Tyrion Grant Foster. That's your guy, I know, from Kansas at one point. What a game from him. Yep. Nearly scored 30. But again, free throws, 9 for 16 from the free throw line for him. That's unacceptable in a game against Alabama. You need to hit those.
Game that you held Alabama to only 70 or something like
72 to 61.
Yeah, and you lose the game. Like 9 times out of 10, you beat Alabama if you hold them to 70. They're a 100-point team a night. I think they were I want to say they were easily in the top 3, but I believe they were the NCAA leaders in points per game at the free throw line is huge, man. You can't miss. One guy missed 7 free throws.
That and
That's
Grand
huge.
Canyon was up with 3 minutes left in the game, and I think Alabama went on like a 13-0 run. And they ended up winning by 11. So it was insane game. It's one of those games where you can catch someone who box score watched it. If they're like, "Oh, Bama killed them." It's like, no, not at all.
Yeah,
3 minutes
absolutely.
left in that game. Everyone thought Grand Canyon had it won. They were minus 300 favorites on the live line. It was a lot of respect for Grand Canyon. We've talked about it before. Unfortunately, probably not a type of program that we see coming back next year with some stacked crew, but maybe get a couple guys out of recruitment.
The one thing I say, they've been consistent though. You've been one of the few people in the world, probably in the world, that been watching them the last years. I remember I can go back maybe 4 to 5 years ago if you're still watching those guys. So they're consistently like a 20 win plus team. So they'll be good. It's just, do they pull out that conference every year? As our friends group say, this is a Jim knows ball moment. Jim watched that big game from beginning to end, and I know for a fact whatever he's saying right now is the truth. You know what I mean? I'm pretty like that. You can't miss. You shoot 50% from the free throw line in the tournament. You're not gonna win the game. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, it's two things. Nate Oates is a hell of a coach, and Mark Sears is a hell of a guard and showed up in that game big time. He had 26, but guess what? Only missed one free throw that game. Only had 6 attempts, but stuff like that's the difference. Do they have a shot
Absolutely.
against the Tar Heels, or do you see the Tar Heels rolling through the Crimson Tide?
The only shot they got is if Carolina gets into that little bit of helter skelter. What I mean by that is if you take quick shots and you let Alabama run. And what I mean by you can take quick shots as long as they're open and good shots and you're making them. But if you're just taking quick shots and it's Alabama's pace, you're going to lead them in the game because they can score so much. UNC is the real deal. I do not believe Alabama, though, has a shot with them in terms of physicality. I believe that's where the weakness is at, and I believe that's where UNC is going right away, right to the inside, right to the post, right with those Ingram and Baycott. They should be able to dominate those guys from beginning to end.
Just
and
levels,
that should be
right?
over. Yeah, I just believe when you got a fifth-year All-American, you got a kid in Ingram who is trying to prove everything to the country that he belongs in that Carolina uniform still. When you play with that much attitude and emotion, you should be able to do your thing. I don't believe that Alabama got guards. We saw that. Obviously, you saw that in the Grand Canyon game. They got plenty of guards. Hell, great elite guards.
Mark Sears being one.
UNC though, you know what I mean. UNC has R.J. Davis, Elliot Cadeau, Cormac Ryan, 25-year-old super senior. You know what I mean? Like that. So I just think Carolina rolls them up too. I think Carolina puts them in the blender.
You said we talked about levels to this. You said put them in a blender. Those terms describe another team in this tournament, March Madness, the UConn Huskies. They didn't go against juggernauts. I mentioned it to you. I don't know why their coach is complaining about the seeding. They ended up facing a 9 seed instead of an 8 seed, and they got away with facing the 5 seed instead of the 4 seed. So they're kind of, I don't want to say getting away with, they're playing quality teams. I was going to ask the obvious question. They're still the team to beat, but I assume that's a yes because they won last year. They have to be by default.
Yeah.
So the second half of that question, can anyone?
San Diego State, I get it. They got that revenge factor. In terms of, that was last year's national championship game, San Diego State versus UConn. They should come in San Diego State willing, giving it everything they got in this one. I just don't believe they got enough scoring for the national champs.
I'll let you pick up the metaphorical clipboard here, possibly the one that Pringle threw. But anyway, talking to these other 15 teams that may be watching this somehow in this podcast, how do you beat UConn? How does this team get beat? We've seen them lose during the year. They're not undefeated. What's the blueprint? What do these teams have to do in this March Madness to knock this team out of here?
You have to score yourself. You can't let that defense set up get overwhelming. If they miss, you got to get layups. You got to get easy ones. The more easy ones you get, the more loose the defense is going to become. That's just normal basketball. You start getting layups, they'll start backpedaling. Now you start driving and kicking versus them. You're not going to beat them scoring 50. You're not going to beat them scoring 60. You're going to have to probably score in high 70s, 80s. Somewhere. If you can get to 90, you probably had a great day versus them. But you have to get easy buckets. You have a chance to score, you have to score. And so far, the 2 games they've played, the teams got opportunities. They don't make buckets.
So the easy answer is you have to play your best game of the year.
Yeah, at
And
this
you have to
point,
hope for a little luck on top of it.
a little bit, but again, I think you have to come in with that attitude. There's only one team I think that can knock them out in their side, but they have a tough one coming up too. So
We talked about every one seed except for one, and it's the team that put up the most points this weekend. Purdue Boilermakers put up 106 points this weekend. Granted, Utah State's not a powerhouse, but probably a more impressive game, especially more than the line thought they were going to win by. Are we underrating Purdue? And if so, why is that? Because of their choking in the past, or because of something? Is their game boring? What is it?
I think that people are used to the Matt Painter. He doesn't really get it done. I'm still not a believer in their guards. I still believe that if a team has really good guards, they have a tough one. They have another one with Gonzaga, whose guards looked great. So yeah, they beat down on a.
I won't make you talk about that Gonzaga Kansas game. Don't worry.
Oh no, it's okay. I know they're a mediocre Kansas team, but their guards played great in that one. I'm just not sold on the Purdue guards, and I think that's my problem still. But again, I keep saying that, and then they're kicking the shit out of teams. So maybe I'm the wrong one. But they have a good game coming up. They have another Hall of Fame coach they're going to run into. So it'll be another good one.
I need you to do the viewing audience a favor. You did it for them last week. A lot of people appreciate it that reached out to me. I need you to look at the games on Thursday. Those 4 games. We have Clemson, Arizona, San Diego State, UConn, Alabama, UNC, and Illinois, Iowa State. What game there is the one that, if not all of them, but at least one that people have to make sure and get in front of their TVs for and catch that on Thursday night?
Well, I believe the last game of the night, Iowa State, Illinois. I believe that's as good as a matchup you can find. I believe Illinois has a more star power with Terrence Shannon Jr., who's on a ridiculous run. He's probably been my favorite player to watch in the tournament. And both teams can play defense. Both teams can score if they get up and down. Lipsey's probably one of the more underrated point guards as well in the country. That's Iowa State's little guy with the headband. They also have a Springfield guy in Hassan Ward. Went to Central High School, so shout out to the local kid, doing his thing, putting on for 413. But I think that's the game of the night. I think that both teams defensively get after it. They get into the lane. They like to sit down a lot. They're willing to guard one-on-one. I think Carolina takes care of business that day. UConn, sadly, I think takes care of business. The sleeper one, though, which is I believe what we touched on, was the Arizona Clemson. In terms of matchups, Clemson's going to shoot the 3 ball. We already know that with Joe Girard and the gang. They're good down low. Sadly, Arizona is my West Coast, outside of Gonzaga's, the other West Coast team, I believe, that chokes a lot. They tend to have superstar teams some years, and they don't get it done. I would say maybe those two. For me, I would have to probably still go Iowa State, Illinois. I think that's a slugfest, but don't be surprised that Clemson-Arizona game, though, is just as good, if not better.
So people watching that late game, let's say Iowa State, Illinois, 2 teams that, while very good this season, very successful, the seeds reflect that, not mainstream teams. People know the UConns, people know the Dukes, Kentuckys. They're looking for a pick, close to an even line. Iowa State's -1.5. Bet responsibly. People saying, Tevin, I need a pick here. I need to have a reason to stay away. Just a little advice on what the best pick for this game should be.
I believe Illinois wins the basketball game. I believe Illinois, at the end of the day, has the best player on the floor at all times. When your best player is one to live up to the moment. I think Iowa State is a lot more team based. They'll kill you with everyone. Whereas when the game gets tight and the game gets locked in and it's close, you might want that guy that can take over. And I believe Illinois has the guy that can take over the game late in the game. So I'll probably have to. I get the edge that way, and they're the underdog. They're actually getting 1.5 points as of right now. So my bet would be, guys, Illinois money line.
You heard it here. You heard it here. And just know, if it doesn't go right, we'll make them answer to it next week. Don't worry. Friday night, we have NC State Marquette, Gonzaga Purdue, Duke Houston, Creighton Tennessee. Same question here. What game do I have to make sure to watch on Friday night, if not all of them?
As a fan, I would love to watch my boy DJ Burns get busy versus Marquette. That's just me picking like my celebrity pick of the games. Mm-hmm. But if I have to honestly tell you who the best matchup is, it might low-key be that Duke Houston.
I agree.
Again, you got the blue blood and Duke. I call it, as I see it, basketball royalty. the king, one of the titans of college basketball. And then you got Houston, the new school on the block. Last 5-6 years, they've been to some Final Fours, a lot of Sweet 16s. One of the years Houston can win is another very good year to do it. For you guys that are not big into freshmen and guys coming in, Duke has a freshman top 10 player in Sean Stewart who can't even get on the floor for them. In case we're wondering, you guys know what I mean.
And I'm kind of noticing it now. Real quickly, the only game we didn't really touch base on the Sweet 16 is the last game on Friday, Creighton, Tennessee. That has a build to be a classic. That's again touch on people complained about the first part of the tournament being boring, a lot of favorites winning. But the result of that, the positive, is that we get a lot of classics in these next rounds. We don't have 11 versus a 14, which could be good games. But the Creighton Tennessees, the Duke Houstons, those games are a lot more appealing. Anything you want to mention about this Tennessee Creighton game before I talk highly about Creighton, because I want to.
That's another very sleeper of a game. Both teams are old, very, very, very old on both sides of the ball. It's really going to come down. Does Creighton's defense show up? Tennessee's defense, they live on that side of the ball. Rick Barnes always does. That's just how they do it. But I believe Creighton cannot let Connect go crazy like that. Tennessee will beat you like that. That's their style. If you let them score 80, they're probably going to only give up 70, a little less than that. So you're probably not going to pull that game out. Very old team. So you got fifth-year grad guys. One transfers came in to both sides. They're just old, grown men out there. I'll let you take it away with Creighton because sadly, I still got to roll with Tennessee in that one in the SEC.
Sounds like you were.
Yeah, I still have to go. I think your boy. I think it's Shireman.
Baylor Shireman. Yep.
Yeah, great player. Ashworth, the point guard.
Trey Alexander.
Yup, Trey Alexander.
You got to talk about. I think it's Ryan, but I'm not sure. Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, big fella. He shoots like 70% from the field. Another slept-on guy.
I can't pick against those guys anymore. Tennessee's great, but I'm rocking with Creighton, and I'm gonna get ahead of it now before I ask you, but Creighton's my team, the sleeper team in this tournament. I think they get to the Final Four. I think they have some fun there. I had them in my bracket losing to Kentucky. They don't have to worry about Kentucky anymore. Who's to say we don't get interconference finals? We easily could for March Madness.
I get it. Oregon gave them everything they had. You know what I mean? But
great game. Another game we got to watch with a lot of people rooting for Oregon.
We were going nuts. I have not seen a place like that. I mean, every shot that went in, people were losing their minds, and then Oregon sent it into OT, and you guys just saw my guy Jim's face, man. He was like, there's no way this is happening. and then they steamrolled them, though. You can tell Oregon ran out of gas, and Creighton took it to another level as well. They second OT, veteran group, old team, know how to get it done.
One funny story there, I'll say for the viewing audience. We're ready to go. We're watching. It's about to be the end of the second half. I happen to be looking over a blackjack table, watching the rest of the game, and the sports book was the other side of the casino. And we found out that the sports book TV is ahead of the other TVs because people have started going nuts, and I had no idea why. Because this guy is at like half court. He's double teamed, triple teamed, and then he goes up for a shot. And I said, "There's no way," and he made it. And it was just a fun experience. Maybe I'm saying that because the team I was rooting for won, but great time. And this round of the tournament and the rest of the rounds can only hope to have games like that the rest of the way. Next time we have this, if we are able to do our episode next week, it will be the Final Four.
Cool.
So I'm gonna ask you now. When we go to that video, what is your Final Four pick? I'll give you another shot. Give me your 4 teams at the end here.
I think Carolina gets out. They're in the Final Four for sure. That's my first team. I think they look better for sure than everyone else. UConn, I don't want to pick them. But sadly, I have to pick the Huskies. They just look better as of right now. Today, with 2 games played, they just look dominant. See, the thing is that the South bracket, like you had told me, it's tough. Because even if Houston gets on, you might have to play Marquette after, and both teams got good guards and they're old, and that's Shaka Smart. So that's the tough one. I believe Houston has to get to the Final Four though, for this year to be successful and how they dominated everyone else that wasn't the Big 12. And they dominate the Big 12 as well because they were Big 12 regular season champs.
Do we get an all number one Final Four prediction from Tevin? Do we get rock?
No.
Talk about rock chalk, right?
The other team is not gonna. Gonzaga, Purdue does not get in. Purdue's gonna lose either to Gonzaga or this Creighton Tennessee teams. One of them are gonna beat them. Yeah. I believe that all three of those teams have guards that can give them problems. Where they lack at, those other teams are very good at. And those, I believe Purdue's going to be the one seed that doesn't get in.
Spoiler alert to the audience: if Purdue is the number seed that gets in from that will be the first question we lead off with in episode 3. Purdue is the weakest of the 4 number 1 seeds, even though they've looked impressive as all hell. I just can't say they're better in Houston, UNC, or UConn. That's out of the question for me. So I get it.
Or Creighton's really good at the guard spot, very dominant. I think if someone's going to do a hiccup here, it's going to be Purdue. The one I'm not surprised though that gets the hiccup off rip though is the Houston team though, because they do play a very good Duke team that they have to play in this next round. Gonzaga's very good too. Don't get it messed up. Purdue is good too, and Gonzaga's good, but
you have to be good to get to this point, most likely.
Yeah, the one seed though that has a very, very, very tough matchup right now is Friday night. Is that Houston team? They are playing Duke basketball, and Duke looks really good right now.
Very quickly, I want to ask you before we go, one last question here. The coaching in this tournament has been a big part of it, obviously. Has had major impacts for better and worse in this tournament. I was going to do a 5. I want to narrow it down to 3. In order, give me your power ranking. Top 3 coaches left in the tournament.
Left in the tournament. Wow. That's wow. Dan Hurley, number 1. Reigning national champs. They ain't take their foot off the gas in 2 years. Gotta give credit where it's due. Yeah. Kelvin Sampson, coach from Houston. I think he's number 2. I like Matt Painter. I'm a big McDermott guy as well from Creighton. Rick Barnes is a hell of a coach. But sadly, every time this dude gets to this part of the tournament, though, Shaka Smart's a beast. I like Shaka Smart, Dan Hurley, and definitely Kelvin Sampson. So picking 3 was tough there because Rick Barnes, I think, is a good coach in Tennessee. Like the way he was able to flip Tennessee from last year's offense to how they look this year, was very impressive.
But Tevin, I do want to thank you for being able to hop on another episode. I know I got a lot of positive reception from people that weren't sure about this tournament, not sure about the ins and outs and intangibles of March Madness. And I told him I'm going to bring a heavy hitter on that knows his stuff. Isn't perfect, but knows better college ball than most people here. For anyone out there that wants to follow Tevin, hit him up on Twitter. It's at UnknownZoneTJ. He's very active on there. You'll see a lot of sports talk on there. You can directly discuss this with him if you disagree or agree with anything he said on this episode or the past one. Tevin, thank you very much, my friend, and we'll see you for the next one.
Always, brother. Well, listen, when we come back, like you said, it's the Final Four, baby. Great time to be alive.
For sure. And we'll be there for it. We'll definitely have our episode out before the Final Four so everyone gets their picks and insight after a good week tonight.
But Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. You guys enjoy your guys' weekend, Jimbo. I will definitely probably be giving you a buzz directly after this, more than likely. So.
Yeah, might as well. Talk to you in 10 minutes.
All right, brother.
Have a good one, everybody. Take it easy.